Storage is behind all this stuff. The important components of computing are the compute, the networking, the storage, and memory. Anything you use today personally has storage, and this other stuff wouldn't work if they didn't have storage and memory behind it. The other stuff's sexier, but we're useful. Storage is behind it all.
Thomas, I'm super excited to have you on this week's episode of the Silicon Valley Podcast. Now, for our listeners, this is not the first time you've been on the show. In fact, years back, we had you when, I'm not sure, were you the incumbent or were you currently the president of IEEE on our last interview?
It was before I was even elected.
That's crazy. Okay, yeah. Time goes by a little bit too fast.
Pre-COVID too, I believe. Yeah.
It was. It was in person. It was down in Mountain View. And oh my gosh, this had to have been 5-6 years ago now, if you think about it.
I think it was, yeah.
Okay, so that just for our listeners out there that have been fans since day one, go back to the archives, check out that episode because I do remember it being incredible. But for our audience that this is the first time that might be hearing your voice or learning about you, give us a little bit of history of your past, what you've worked on before diving into the questions, and especially if we could talk around, your history in the storage industry. You're a legend in the industry, so give our audience a little bit of background.
Sure. Yeah. Well, as you say, I've been working in the digital storage industry for over 40 years. Engineering, senior management positions. And so I've worked at a number of companies. I started out with tapes, floppy disks, and then hard disk drives, for example. And the last 25 years, I've actually done consulting gigs, lots of different things, from due diligence for investors to technical work, organizing stuff, getting products out. And I also have been writing books, market and technology reports. I put on digital storage and memory oriented events. And I think we're going to mention one of those that I'm involved in, FMS. I also do a regular blog for Forbes.com on storage, memory, and applications. And also I do things on the media and entertainment storage space as well. So I've been involved in IEEE. I've been a volunteer there for probably about 20 years. I've been a member longer, but I've been doing stuff there for about 20 years. I'm an IEEE fellow. I was the president of IEEE last year, and now I'm what they call the past president. I also was president of something called IEEE USA. I was a director on the IEEE board representing the Western United States. That's called Region 6. And I was also the past chair of the Santa Clara Valley IEEE section. But in addition to that, I've been active in other professional organizations, in particular the Storage Networking Industry Association, or SNIA, and the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers, or SMPTE. So I have a website at https://tomcoughlin.com. That's spelled COUGHLIN.
Wait, so first off, I had no idea that you were involved in anything with the movie industry.
Oh,
so, okay, so I want to ask about different storage devices behind the scenes over your career, but let's table that right now. Tell me about Hollywood.
How about Hollywood? Well, I got interested so Hollywood has gone digital, and during the time this has been happening, I've been looking at digital storage and its applications in professional media and entertainment. I do reports on that. I go to some of the big trade shows, NAB, IBC. I talk to people. I've been doing a digital storage in memory survey for people in professional media and entertainment now for several years. It's still running right now. In fact, if I can dig that up and let you know about that. But, I write a report based on that, plus all the other stuff going on in the industry. So I've done that for quite a while. Gives me a great excuse to see what people are doing and all the digital technologies they're using. For instance, I've seen some amazing virtual reality sets, that they create for doing these films, or doing things that look like you're actually out in the field, even though you're in a building. And that really got a a boost during COVID when people, actors and such couldn't travel that much. So it was easier to just do something in a studio. But these studios are now just amazing. The way they can recreate, using digital video, an environment, with some props, but a lot of it with the digital video. So it's pretty cool. I've got a lot of enjoyment out of seeing all this stuff.
Okay, and I'm really curious about how has storage played an impact in Hollywood and the movies. Since it has all gone to digital, I'm thinking, well, the cost of storage and that, but I'm sure there's more that I'm missing. And then also, I'm not sure if our audience knows what IEEE is and the importance of this organization, not just, well, at a global level. So
Yeah.
a couple questions there. So keep with the Hollywood, switch to IEEE or vice versa.
Okay. So Hollywood is, so what's happened is that, the digital technologies have freed us up to do things in a way we've never done before. You could do special effects, rendering. You could do, make things, artificial things that look real. And all of this stuff generates data. So digital storage is where that stuff is stored. And whether you're talking about storage that you're using for capturing content, which may be in cameras, or could be, in a rendering studio, things of that sort. The post production work done on it, to edit it, to add things to it, to sharpen it, to change the characteristics of the colors, things of that sort. It all involves manipulating data. And so digital storage plays a huge role in every part of the media workflow. And then finally, at the end, for storing the content for long term, for new ways in which you might be able to use that content in the future, for monetization, and just in general to keep an archive of who we are and the kind of things we did. Storage is behind it all.
Okay. What about IEEE?
So IEEE, I've been a member now for 47 years, and I joined in graduate school. But it's the world's largest technical professional organization. It has close to 500,000 members in over 190 countries. And it includes technologists it started out with electrical engineers but it's much broader than that now. It's got technologists in almost every field you can think of, from nanotechnology to biotechnology, from hardware to software, from generating and distributing power to creating robots. Anything you can think of, IEEE's got stuff going on in it. And they put on over 2,000 conferences and events each year. They publish a good percentage of the world's technical literature. IEEE has a standards organization that, for instance, the internet runs on IEEE standards. It enables interoperability and enables industries. And more recently, there's been activity in that area in IEEE standards on sustainability and ethical AI practices that have come up there. Could help us to solve global problems, enable us to make effective and ethical use of technology, and in general enables advancing technology that benefits humanity, which is the IEEE's mission.
So is IEEE, it's an organization, you mentioned 500,000 people in 190 plus countries.
Yep.
How much sway at the government level or policy making level? Like, is this an organization where people get together and have drinks on Saturday and nothing gets done? Or is this an organization that is the secret hand controlling?
Well, IEEE, especially in the U.S., we've got a part of IEEE called IEEE USA, and I was president of that in 2019. And they are involved in public policy. And they do a number of things, particularly advocating on technology related topics. That's basically what we focus on, and that's been around for a long time. Originally, it was created in order to create what became portable retirement plans like 401ks and IRAs. That basically stemmed out of IEEE. It's formed USA. That was what originally got it going, but it's involved in things involving careers in the technology areas, as well as public policy related to research and development, things of that sort. IEEE USA actually has its office in Washington, D.C., and they have people there that are actual lobbyists. I talk to legislators about technical related topics, and every year they've been organizing for members an event for members to meet their legislators. They call it Congressional Visits Day, and this year was the largest one ever, with I think over 300 people participating in it and getting to meet their legislators and talk to them about technology and things that are of interest to them. So that's some of the. So yeah, they've got and. There's now, we've had some public policy activities in Europe. And this last year, when I was president, we actually put some more money into a more global public policy capability, where it's appropriate, So yeah, we're doing that.
Okay. So with that, then sounds like IEEE very active at all levels.
Oh yeah. And it was a hoot and an honor to be able to do this thing last year.
Any stories that you could share with us before we move on to questions?
There are so many, stories. In fact, I think I'm going to write a book about it. I did a blog, actually. All the IEEE offices I've written blogs there. And so I wrote in my Forbes blogs, I actually have a whole series of blogs on stuff that I did during stuff that happened and things I was involved in while I was the president. I was over 250 days on the road. I visited 26 countries, 13 states, some more than once, and I've got so many stories. So
you gotta share one. Sorry.
Okay. So IEEE has a standards association, right? And one of the jobs of the IEEE president is to go around to various conferences that are put on by some of our societies and give out these technical field awards, these medals. And so I was going to be going to Athens, Greece, to give out a technical field award at an Information Theory Society conference, I think it was. And so I went out to do that. But since I was going out there, the Standards Association folks got a hold of me and said, well, we've got this standard we've been trying to get going in Athens. There's a professor there. He's an expert in marine electronics. And I wonder if you can go out there and help on this. So I went there. I visited this professor. He has this amazing laboratory. He's got like ship engines in this laboratory. I mean, huge stuff like that. He's written textbooks on marine electronics. So how do you ground a ship? Things like that. And the standard they're working on was electrifying ports, putting enough electricity in the port, connecting to the grid, and putting an infrastructure so that when ships are at port, they can connect to the grid instead of running their engines to generate electricity. And, they don't use the cleanest fuel. So this actually would help to clean up the air quality in ports and in the cities that are next to ports. They've been trying to get the port in Athens to do this, to be a role model in doing this. They hadn't had any luck. So they organized this meeting because the IEEE president is coming to town. And so we met in this planetarium science museum place. I got a tour of it. It was pretty cool, actually. And in that, we had this big meeting. We had a bunch of the IEEE standards people. A professor was there. We had a whole bunch of government ministers from Greece there. We had a whole bunch of the ship owners, there. And I was sitting right next to the deputy ambassador from the U.S. who was there for this meeting. And so I'm not a power guy. I'm a storage and memory guy. So I said maybe 2 sentences this whole meeting.
But for our audience, Tom is about 6'8", 300 pounds of pure muscle. Anyone listening on the podcast, just visualize that. All right, Tom, go on.
So I was there for the meeting. I didn't say that much. They went back and forth, very passionate discussion, very Mediterranean passionate discussion. The ship owners saying, "Oh, we don't have enough margin to make those investments," and the minister people, they were saying, "Oh, but we made commitments to the EU to do this, to do things like this," and went back and forth. I didn't think anything would happen from this meeting, except that afternoon I was with the professor and he got a phone call from the port and they were asking how soon they can get their permit to install this electricity. So that's my story, one I could share.
And at that moment, you release the hostage. Okay, so Tom, let's go back to memory now. How does memory? AI is the topic of everything, and I want to get there in a bit with how AI and memory what we should be looking at the two. But before even that, how the history of storage in general and kind of the evolution of the storage over time.
Oh gosh, man, that's a long story. As soon as people invented computers, they had to invent ways to keep information around so the computer could compute on it. And so there's been a long history since the 1940s of people developing technologies for keeping data around, even for a little while, long enough for the computer to use the data and generate outputs. So there's a lot of antique technologies. If you live in the Bay Area and want to go to the Computer History Museum, they have some of the old stuff there. You can see some of that there. But more modern technologies. So there was something called ferrite cores that were used to be the main memory in computers. And DRAM started taking over from that in the 1970s, for example. So it moved from these magnetic devices to semiconductor technologies. In the case of hard disk drives, the original one was introduced in 1956. It was a RAMAC computer. It had about roughly 3.5 megabytes of data that it was storing on 52 disks. I think they were about 2 feet in diameter. This thing was about the size of a refrigerator. And that was the first hard disk drive. Now there's hard disk drives out there with 36 terabytes in a 3.5 inch form factor. And they're going to be getting bigger, 40, 50, 60, and even up to 100 terabytes probably by the next decade.
What's going to limit that? Is it just like the cut-in machine, or it'll be online? Like, what's going to limit the amount of storage on that disk?
Cleverness.
Oh, good answer.
Yes.
You're going to say magic, but okay.
No, cleverness. In fact, that was in Moore's law. That was one of the factors that Moore attributed to progress was being clever. And so, in this case, what's happening now is the hard disk drive industry, for instance, is moving into using heat-assisted magnetic recording, where they're using lasers to heat up a magnetic media that they could not record on without heating it up. The magnetic fields required to change the state of the magnetic media is too high at room temperature. So they heat it up, it drops down, and they can write on it with conventional writers. And that becomes a very stable media that I could write at much higher densities. So that's a big advance right now in the hard disk drives. That's going to carry it off, like I say, probably help to achieve over 100 terabyte disk drives within the next decade. Now, the magnetic tape is another one. Digital tape was first introduced in 1952. And currently, there's 2 types of tapes that people are using: the LTO tape, which is the linear tape open format, which is the most popular, and then IBM has this enterprise tape. They have capacities now up to 30 terabyte native for the LTO and 50 terabytes on that IBM tape, and their roadmap takes them out to. Basically, they could, sometime towards the end of the next decade, you could record over a petabyte on one of these half-inch tape cartridges. And then there's a bunch of other technologies out there right now. There's a whole bunch of optical technologies that have come out with the idea for long-term data preservation as well, which may compete against tape, but also be used for other things. And then there's DNA, which people have also looked at using for long-term digital storage as well. So there's a bunch of stuff going on in storage. And storage is the part of the plumbing that makes processing happen, whether it's artificial intelligence or Internet of Things or, just doing things in your phone. You need some kind of storage technology. I didn't even talk about the flash memory, of course. Flash memory is the other one that's into almost everything anything you use today personally that has storage. There's NAND flash in it. And those SSDs now, they're more expensive per byte than hard disk drives, but they're faster. And so they become the primary storage in data centers. Hard disk drives are a type of a secondary storage, and then maybe tape is in the background. But like I say, there's other things in play right now. So it's really a very, very interesting area of development. And there's a number of things that are going to be increasing to meet the needs. The deluge of data that's being created. We need stuff to store that on, either memory for processing, like the high bandwidth memory and GPUs, or we need storage, SSDs, hard disk drives, even tape or other technologies that store this stuff. So we can use it for training. We can use it for RAG for using our own data to tune up a large language model, foundational model. Storage is behind all this stuff. The important components of computing are the compute, the networking, the storage, and memory. And so, yeah.
Are there any limits right now that storage is actually slowing progress down
Well, everything,
or not?
things are, there's definitely limits on what people can do. And hard disk drives, this technology, that hammer technology, was over 25 years in development. And before it finally, like the last couple of years, we started seeing it come out in hard disk drives. And NAND flash faces its own technology issues. The cost reductions that you got from adding more layers is much less now than it was when they first did it. So they're having to do other things to try to increase the capacity and lower the cost. Among those that are really being pushed right now is moving from 2 or 3 bits per memory cell to 4 bits per memory cell. That's called a QLC or quad level cell. And so people are there's a lot of they're introducing those. There's a whole bunch of the SSD companies that are introducing close to 100 terabyte or even higher capacity SSDs with an awful lot of NAND flash in it, but using this QLC so they can try to fit it into a reasonable package. So there's like I say, cleverness is part of it. You run into an issue in one thing, can you do something else that helps you to get ahead? But eventually there are limits. And we can foresee some of them. And there's actually, IEEE actually has a road mapping effort where they are trying to see how far they can go. So based on what we know, there's limits what we can do with hard drives, the limits eventually what we can do, with semiconductor memory. So, but, we keep finding new stuff too. So there may be ways of overcoming those limits as well. And we need them because we're doing all this processing and we need places to put stuff.
You had mentioned all these, new technologies. You mentioned the heating up a certain temperature for the disk. What are the breakthroughs that are happening right now in memory that people may not be aware of? You did mention one, but is that it, or is there a lot more?
Well, there's a few I mentioned. The heat assisted magnetic recording for hard disk drives, trying to push from more bits per cell in NAND flash. They're still gradually increasing the number of layers in the 3D NAND flash. But there's also interesting things going on in memory technologies. There's an area I've been working on with a colleague on looking at non-volatile memories, which could eventually replace some of our volatile memories. But it's a race because the volatile memories keep trying to make improvements as well. But there's things like magnetic random access memory, resistive memories, phase change memory. The Optane was a phase change memory, Intel's Optane, and also ferroelectric memory. And there's been a lot of work done to make these more mainstream. They're actually MRAM in particular, and maybe some resistive RAM are now being used in a lot of consumer devices and embedded devices. For instance, there's Fitbits and wearable glass, Fitbits and smart glasses and stuff like that are having MRAM as part of them, and also devices that'll be going into cars in the future that are using magnetic random access memory. All the big foundries are making these kind of memories available for people to build into their devices. So that's another interesting area. The possible advantage there long term is, well, one thing is code storage is done on NOR flash, and NOR flash has scaling limits. So they're using this memory to replace that for storing code, especially, places where you do like an update of the code, like a wireless update, people updating their cars, things like that. These would be good memories to use for that.
But why is that? Why is there a difference if it's memory, like in your car, and it's like?
Well, the NOR flash wears out for one thing. It can't scale, it can't get smaller than a certain size, and it wears out. And the MRAM, for instance, can scale to get smaller sizes, so I can get more memory in it in a given amount of surface area. And I can it also doesn't wear out the same way. So I can do a lot. I can do a lot more, online updates, things of that sort. But also SRAM and even potentially DRAM If the volume goes up and the cost goes down, these new memories could replace them, which could have a big impact on sustainability issues, because SRAM and DRAM are both volatile memories. When you turn the power off, the data goes away. Okay. These memories turn the power off, the data is still there. So this is great for battery operated devices, but it also, some of the biggest, the GPUs and things of that sort consume a lot of power, the processors, but DRAM does too. And then some of these, a lot of DRAM is supporting some of these activities. So if I can use a non-volatile technology that I don't have to refresh all the time versus the DRAM, I might save a lot of energy, in data centers, or, even if I increase the memory, I'm not increasing my power budget to do it as well. And of course, power is one of the big issues that the data centers are facing today as they do more AI and other energy intensive activities. So that's another interesting area. As I mentioned before, there's a whole bunch of optical startups, optical storage startups, all the way from S-Photonics folks that want to store data in a quartz crystal within the volume of a quartz crystal. In fact, there was that latest Mission Impossible movie. They were kind of referring to that memory and as part of the plot. There also are Cerabyte. There's Folio Photonics, and there's one out of Australia called Optera. Then there's been a few that have been around for a while, like Pickle out of Scandinavia, people working on various optical storage technologies. A lot of these aimed at archiving and long-term digital preservation, which is another really interesting area.
I mean, right there, you'd mentioned a couple of things, but one that caught my attention was data centers, AI, power, that area. I mean, right now in the news, you hear about NVIDIA, you hear about all these chip companies. How come we're not hearing about all these data storage companies or storage companies?
Yeah, because, we're behind the scenes. The other stuff's sexier, but we're useful. And this other stuff wouldn't work if they didn't have storage and memory behind it.
How do you see the storage playing a part in the data centers in the future? Like where? Yeah, because I mean that was just so interesting how you talked about the power and all that. You're like, yeah, it is one of those key components, but it's never talked about. Everyone talks about potential shortage of electricity, or everyone talks about the next GPU, and that's what's on the news. That's what the investors, everyone, but I don't think I've really heard a conversation around storage.
So if you look at those latest GPUs, they have a whole bunch of DRAM around them. They call it high bandwidth memory, and they're actually stacks of DRAM die on top of each other. Currently up to 16 high, but they're talking about going even further. And there's a whole bunch of these surrounding the GPU. That's holds the data that's being used by the GPU for its processing. So these things wouldn't work if you didn't have the storage and memory devices to support them.
How is the startup ecosystem when it comes to storage? I mean, that's another thing. You don't really hear of any storage startups. Why is that? Is it too costly to start a company in that world, or?
Well, there actually are some right now. Like I say, there's these optical storage startups that, in various countries here, which are starting to come to see if they can get a place in the sun,
Okay. Well, I mean, talking about storage, talking about companies, coming up is the Future of Memory and Storage Conference.
Indeed.
Can you talk a little bit about that? And could you talk a little bit about, if anyone were to attend that event, what they should expect, who some of the speakers are, all that good stuff?
Yes, it's the Future of Memory and Storage, and it is going to be August 4th through 7th this year at the Santa Clara Convention Center. And it'll be including every aspect of storage and storage applications there that we're able to pack into it. We've got parallel tracks and keynotes. The keynotes, for instance, have major players in the digital storage and memory industry. And our sessions cover all the major technology and applications for storage and memory. So it's the largest independent event. Companies put on some of their own events, but this is the largest independent event focused on digital storage and memory. And if people want to stay on top of their game and know about this hidden technology that can give you an edge, you don't want to miss it. So, and some of our keynotes are by Kioxia, Fadu, Micron, Silicon Motion, SK Hynix, Samsung, Neo, SanDisk, MaxLinear, Verge.io, and Cove. In addition, we're going to have a special session on AI memory and storage organized by NVIDIA. And I'm going to give a talk on my experience as IEEE President in 2024 on Wednesday. So in addition, we've got a lot of parallel sessions, again, with people from all over the industry. And if people are interested in that, you can look up the FMS 2025, Future Memory and Storage.
I mean, not to give too much away, but is there a disruption or something that is either going to be announced there or some talk that you're really looking forward to on some type of new technology or some type of something that will be there that, have to be there to basically you have to be there?
Yes, there are, and I can't say about all the things because some of them are still under NDA, but I was just involved in judging sponsors and exhibitors who had submitted products. And there's some amazing stuff there for artificial intelligence applications, for consumer applications, data centers, you name it. There's a lot of interesting stuff out there, both in terms of the way that memory is made, but also the way it's used. It includes software as well as hardware. So I'm the general chair of the thing, and so I'm jazzed. I think that it's a great place to find out some of the latest things going on, and there will be some really interesting and insightful things that you can find out there and learn about this hidden but valuable technology.
Well, if anyone wants to enter this world of storage and that, how would one start their career, or what advice do you have someone that's looking for that a career path in this area? And actually, question for you, this area, I'm guessing it's going to be around next 20, 30 years. You're not going to have to worry about it being replaced by AI like so many others, or will you?
Well, I think the way I look at AI is I think of it as more an augmented intelligence, that for those who are willing to learn how to use it, that it can be a way of being able to do your work better. And, but you have to be careful also. You have to be able to, you have to know something about a field, I think, to use AI in it right. You just can't take things on that what it gives you is automatically right. Now, I think that we're getting more accuracy in the things it come up with, which makes it ever more useful. And I think that memory and storage is going to be an important part of doing that, because they say that you have a foundational model that was built, somebody built a big and trained a big model, right? They spent a lot of energy, a lot of time doing it. You don't want to have to do that to try to apply that to your application. So there's this technology like RAG, things like that people do in order to try to tune up a foundational model, something that's already been built with maybe your own. Sorry, go ahead.
Does RAG stand for something?
It's Retrieval Augmented Generation is what it stands for. And it's basically a way that you can use, say I've got some in-house data, for my business, that I could use that to tune up a foundational model and get it to give better answers by letting it have access to that data when it tries to answer a query. So it uses the foundational model of results, but it also can draw upon these databases and stuff you may have in-house in order to be able to improve its capabilities. So, and we're moving outside the age of where AI is just about training to where, if it's going to be impactful, it's going to be with inference. It's going to be actually using the model to do things. So having ways that you can give better results and faster results with a model that's already been trained by processes like this is important. And to do that, you've got to have that data, and it's got to be stored somewhere that you draw upon to do that improvement in the answers that you get from the foundational model.
All right. And then, Tom, before we wrap up, any topics, anything that we did not cover that you think our audience should know that would benefit them? Any last words you'd like to say before we wrap it up for this week's episode?
Well, if you want to find out about me, again, https tomcoughlin.com. We do reports on digital storage and memory topics. So we do a report on this these new non-volatile memory technologies, for example. And the Future Memory and Storage, FMS, is going to be a great event, and I hope people can come to that. And like I say, that whole IEEE thing, I think I'm gonna write a book, uh, basing it off of what I remember and the blogs I wrote, and about the whole experience, which I don't think any IEEE president has done before. So I think that'd be pretty cool. And I'm going to talk about that actually Wednesday afternoon at the FMS too. So
All right. So when the book comes out, we'll have to have you back on the show for the launch. And for our audience out there, well, I'm not the host of the Silicon Valley podcast. I'm an investment banker, mergers, acquisitions, growth capital. Connect with me on my LinkedIn. And to find out more about the podcast, go to thesiliconvalleypodcast.com, where you can look at our archives, where you could see Tom's first episode on the show, and what we're up to in the future. And with that, Tom, I want to thank you for taking time this week to be on the Silicon Valley podcast.
glad to be back, Sean. Thank you very much for inviting me.